missed out because we were doing a series of the important protests and movements. So we are going to do it in that way. Good evening to one and all. Right, let's begin with the first one then. Florence Nightingale Awards. Now, Florence Nightingale Awards, who have been the winners, we are not going to deal with that because there are winners from each and every state. However, there are certain aspects related to this in 2022 which we need to know. So, firstly, these awards were given by Draupadi Murmu, the president of our country, for the year 2021 at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. These particular awards were instituted in 1973, something that you can keep in mind, by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, which is very simple, right? And International Nurses Day is celebrated on the 12th of May. The theme is A Voice to Lead, Invest in Nursing and Respect Rights to secure Global Health. Now, apart from this, the Indian Nursing Council is an autonomous body which was constituted under the Government of India, and no points for guessing, this is also Ministry of Health and Family Welfare by the central government. Which is it a statutory body? Yes, it is. It was made under the Indian Nursing Council Act of 1947, right? And the president as of today is Dr. T. Dilip Kumar. Apart from that, due to several concrete efforts by the union government, the country has seen a doubling of the nursing force. So back in 2000, we had 0.8 nurses per 1,000 population, and right now in 2020 we have 1.7. 2022 का data नहीं है, 2020 तक का data है. However, this number is still less than the number that is prescribed by the World Health Organization, which basically says there should be 3 nurses for every 1,000 population. Apart from that, in this year, there were certain marches, protest marches that were done by the nurses. One was in West Bengal, and the other one was in Delhi as a symbolic strike. And both of them were with respect to the pay scales of the nurses in our country. Apart from this, Sabka Saath, Sabka Bachav, that is the slogan of this nurse, Indu Bala, who was working in Dharamshala hospital, at the zonal hospital in Dharamshala. She was awarded for her brilliant COVID vaccination by the Union Minister Mansukh Mandviya this year on March 8th. And we all know March 8th is celebrated as International Women's Day, wherein she was awarded this particular thing because of the fact that she had administered single-handedly 57,315 doses of vaccination. So Indu Bala is something that you can keep in mind. The next one is the 22nd Law Commission. Now, the 22nd Law Commission, before we get on to that, let's talk about the Law Commission. See, the National Commission for Backward Classes, Scheduled Caste, Scheduled Tribe, these are constitutional bodies. If we talk about the National Commission for Minorities, that is a statutory body. But when we talk about Law Commission, on the other hand, this is a non-statutory body, right? This is made by virtue of the decision of the executive. The first Law Commission was constituted in 1955, and so far they have submitted 277 reports. Of course, the reports, whatever they say is not binding, but they have picked out many, many topics in the past, like acid attack victims के लिए क्या क्या हमारे rules होने चाहिए. For example, death penalty होनी चाहिए, नहीं होनी चाहिए. So of late, we've made the 22nd Law Commission, right? And the 22nd Law Commission has been constituted with Justice Retired Rituraj Avasthi as its head. There are other 5 members on the panel, which would be former Kerala High Court Judge Justice K. Sankaran, Karuna Nithi, and law professors Anand Paliwal, D.P. Verma, and Raka Arya. Now, Justice Avasthi is a little important. Why? Because he was the one who had headed the bench, who in March, the bench that basically said that hijabs should not be allowed in educational institutions in Karnataka. So Justice Avasthi was the head of that particular bench. Apart from that, the 21st Law Commission was headed by Justice B.S. Chauhan, and the term ended in 2018. And now we have the 22nd Commission, right? And the 22nd Commission, what is the job of the 22nd Commission? Apart from many, many other things, they are going to look into the directive principles of state policy, how they can be implemented, if at all. And if in case, the central laws are in line with the visionary document, which is the directive principle of state policy, and also whether or not these laws are in line with the preamble of the Constitution. So that is that with respect to the Law Commission. Good evening, Tanvi and Khushi and Supriya and Utkarsh. Very, very good evening to everyone. Now, I found this article very interesting, and so we are going to deal with the currency in India. The article basically talked about the condition of cash in our country 6 years after demonetization. So what all has changed? So what we are going to deal with is the history of currency in our country. How many times has demonetization happened in India, and how many times and in which all countries has demonetization happened abroad? Whether or not it has been successful or has it been a failure. So 6 years ago on November 8th, we all know that the government, the Prime Minister of our country, he came on our television and he basically said that rupees 500 and rupees 1,000 notes will be demonetized, and this was basically to avoid tax evasion and to unearth all the black money that we are keeping in our boris and wherever we are keeping it, right? Now, 6 years after this particular thing, despite the increase in digitization, it is said that the cash with the public is at a record high of over 30 lakh crore, right? And which is 71% higher than it was in 2016. तो आज की डेट पे भी अगर हम कैशलेस इकोनॉमी की बात करेंगे, ये तो हमें भी पता है कि कैशलेस इकोनॉमी कभी भी नहीं हो सकती, लेस कैश इकोनॉमी जरूर हो सकती है. But the statistics show that the amount of transactions, cash-based transactions that Indians are doing has actually increased ever since 2016. Now, what is demonetization? It's very, very simple. एक हो जाती है fiat currency, एक हो जाती है legal tender. Now, fiat currency is basically a currency जहां पे गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया का ठप्पा लग गया कि भाई यहाँ पे अगर ये वाली करेंसी अगर आप यूज करोगे, लेट्स से 500 रुपीज का नोट है, चलो 500 का तो या 500 रुपीज का नोट है, सो दैट्स अ फिएट करेंसी. द वैल्यू हैज बीन गिवन टू दैट 500 रुपी नोट बाय द रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया, विच इज द गवर्नमेंट्स बैंक. ऐसा नहीं होता कि जो 500 रुपए का नोट होता है, जो मटेरियल से बना होता है, वो 500 रुपए का होता है, उसकी कोई इंट्रिंसिक वैल्यू नहीं होती, एक्सट्रिंसिक वैल्यू होती है. दैट एक्सट्रिंसिक वैल्यू इज असाइन्ड टू दैट 500 रुपी नोट बाय द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया. दैट इज अ फिएट करेंसी. Before 1971, our currency used to be linked to the value of gold. Then comes this President Nixon of the United States of America, and he says de-link it. So तब से हमारी कोई intrinsic value of currency notes है नहीं. So that is fiat currency. The second term that we are going to use is legal tender. Now, legal tender is basically a note, a bank currency note, which the government of India has asked us to use, has permitted us to use. So, for example, अगर हम 1000 रुपीज के नोट के बारे में बात करें, इसको fiat currency जरूर बोलेंगे, लेकिन आज की डेट पे ये legal tender नहीं है, ठीक है? So, demonetization is basically a way in which the government of India tells us what is a legal tender and what is not a legal tender anymore. Now, first, let's talk about the history of currency in India. Now, the first Indian minted coins were of silver, and it had different shapes and figures, included hump, bull, swastik, and other symbols. They were called the Purans and Kashpans or the Pan, and they were believed to be minted in 6th century BC by the Mahajanpada kingdoms. Now, the Mauryan emperor Chandragupta, he's been credited to be the first royal to have a royal standard inscribed in his currency, right? और उसकी currency ऐसे gold, silver, copper, lead वगैरह में आती थी. Indo-Greek Kushan kings, they said that, they started off with this trend wherein they used to engrave the portrait of the particular king on the coin. However, it is Sher Shah Suri who was undisputedly, he's been credited with the introduction of rupiah, right? So he basically introduced rupiah, which was a silver coin weighing 178 grams, and it was divided into 40 copper pieces, which was paisa. इतना ज्यादा पॉपुलर कर दिया था रुपया को कि ब्रिटिश वर नॉट एबल टू changed the coinage system from rupiah to pounds, which is a good thing. And we attribute that particular feat to Sher Shah Suri. The 18th century, it saw the introduction of the paper currencies in India for the first time, and they were introduced by British Raj with the Bengal Bank, the Bank of Hindustan, and the General Bank of Bengal. These were the first banks in India to issue paper currency in our country. Now, mutiny of 1857 ke baad, the British, they said rupee will become the official colonial currency. But however, at that time, they said the head of the King of England should replace the natives' designs and symbols. And the Reserve Bank of India, which was a privately owned company in 1935, it was later on nationalized in 1949, they were given the authority to issue Indian currency notes. So then my homework becomes कि महात्मा गांधी कब से आए? अब obviously आपको पता है, थोड़ा logic लगा के आप आंसर कर सकते हैं, पर फिर भी इस चीज को देखिएगा. Now, history of demonetization in India and abroad. Now, firstly, it has been said, back in the 14th century, there was Muhammad bin Tughlaq of the Tughlaq dynasty. What he had done was demonetization in the coinage era, back when paper currency wasn't there. So basically, he had shortage of gold and silver metal coins. So he said कि ठीक है, gold and silver metal coins को वापस लेकर आके दो और उसके हिसाब से brass and copper coins ले लो. And they also said कि to mint it in an easier manner, वो जो royal seal थी उसको replace कर दिया with simple inscription. So back at that time also people started doing ghapla and they started minting, they started making fake notes. आपको भी पता है 2016 में जब हमारा demonetization हुआ था तो उस समय पे भी बहुत ज्यादा ऐसे scams हो रहे थे. I remember there was this one guy who had duped a vegetable vendor, which is quite sad, right? What he had done was 2000 रुपए के नोट अभी किसी ने देखे तो थे नहीं, first एक हफ्ते की ही बात हुई थी. So he got like a printout of a paper which was pink in color and he wrote 2000 ऐसे print कर दिया उस तरीके से और वो printed paper को ऐसे चिपका के वो बेचारे vegetable vendor से 2000 रुपए की vegetables खरीद लिए. So whatever happened now, that happened in the 14th century also. Whenever there is a new mechanism, people tend to misuse it in their own way. Having said that, the pre-independence government of India had banned the much in circulation ₹1,000 high denomination note for the very first time on 12th January 1946. And क्यों किया था वो वाला काम? वो basically for the same reason कि tax evasion कर रहे हैं businessmen. And हमेशा जब भी demonetization हुई है इंडिया में, Reserve Bank of India has always said that, listen, this is not really working out. Because you see, even in 2016, when your demonetization happened, the Reserve Bank of India said कि जितना भी black money था वो नहीं आया. The purpose wasn't resolved. And this is not me saying it is the Reserve Bank of India. So back in 1946 also, the then governor of RBI, Sir Chintaman Deshmukh, CD करके आप पढ़ते हैं ना? So he went on to saying कि भाई he has his own apprehensions कि नहीं मिलने वाला, जो black money है वो वापस नहीं आने वाला. Why? क्योंकि black money कोई ऐसे पहाड़ बना के अपने घर पे थोड़ी ना रखता है. उससे या फिर gold खरीद लेंगे या फिर land खरीद लेंगे. So we've already converted our black money into assets. And when I say we, I'm not talking about me and you, I'm talking about basically other people. And the ones who are just keeping ऐसे थोड़े बहुते notes, फिर उनके पास इतना ज़्यादा black money होगा भी नहीं. जिनके पास ज़्यादा होता है, they already converted into assets, which is why this particular exercise in India, as per the Reserve Bank of India, has always been futile. Now, coming back to the Janata Party, so the erstwhile Janata Party under the Prime Ministership of Morarji Desai को ही no confidence motion से सबसे पहले remove किया था, right? So this government demonetized ₹1,000, ₹5,000, 10,000. In fact, 10,000 rupees के भी नोट थे. जितना ज्यादा बड़ी करेंसी होती रहती है, उतना ज्यादा ये लगता है कि इन्फ्लेशन ज्यादा है सिस्टम में, right? So that demonetization was done in 1978, and unlike 2016, people were allowed 3 days to exchange. Otherwise 2016 में तो हमें काफी देर तक का टाइम दे दिया था कि आप इधर 31st December, if I'm not wrong, तक हम लोग कर ही जा रहे थे, exchange कर रहे थे. But यहाँ पे सिर्फ 3 days का टाइम मिला था. Now in historical perspective, 1978 वाला जो demonetization किया था, वो इसलिए किया था क्योंकि श्रीलंका का जो demonetization था, that happened very successfully. We'll talk about it later. And the finance minister, H.M. Patel, he said, this exercise is a success. But again, the RBI governor, I.G. Patel, he said, no, not at all. This has not been, this has been a futile exercise. And this was exactly the case in 2016 also. You can read about it. Then is the United States of America also did demonetization 1873 में उनके coinage की, right? And but this does not, it did not become successful. And the reason why I'm saying that is उनके पास फिर से उन्होंने रीमोनेटाइजेशन कर दी थी. तो जिस सिल्वर कॉइन की उन्होंने डीमोनेटाइजेशन कर दी थी उसको रीमोनेटाइज कर दिया था by the Brand Allison Act of 1878 in a matter of 5 years. Then is again United States of America in 1969, again to combat the problem of black money. President Richard Nixon, he had declared, any currency which is over and above $100, he said that will be null and worthless. And it was considered to be a huge success. It also improved the American banking system. In fact, until now, the $100 note, the currency note, is the most extensively used denomination in the United States of America. Then comes your Sri Lankan demonetization of 1970. At that time, they had declared 50 and 100 rupee note illegal tender. And this happened very nicely. The common Sri Lankan people also responded very, very positively. And in fact, जिस सरकार ने ये चीज की थी, वो सरकार दोबारा से elections लड़के वापस आ गई थी. तो ये आप देख लीजिएगा, श्रीलंका very much, it has been very much in news. 1970 में ये कौन सा यहाँ पे president था, prime minister था, that becomes important, right? And then they came to power again, and people were very, very amicable with respect to this. It was considered a successful story. Then Ghana में भी demonetization हुआ 1982 में, and this particular thing, though this measure it sought to pull a plug on tax evasion, corruption, and improve the liquidity position of the already fragile economy, it was a colossal failure. तो इधर भी failure हो गया था, right? Failure कब बोलेंगे जब वो black money हमें नहीं मिल रहा है. Nigerian demonetization of 1984. The then military dictator of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, was the one who had, done this demonetization of the old currencies. But again, the goal was to put an inflated and debt-ridden economy back on track. But it was already a very fragile economy, and it did not work out for them. Myanmar maybe 1987. अभी सारी bordering states countries तो वैसे ही important है, तो keep this in mind. You see, the military invalidated roughly 80% of the value of money in circulation, sparked a student protest, and later on, people were like, we don't want this government anymore. Soviet Union की भी demonetization हुई थी in the late 1980s, amongst many, many other reasons. This was also one of the reasons that led to the demise of the once mighty Soviet Union or USSR. Australia 1996, अगर हम बात करें, यहाँ पे भी demonetization हुआ, right? But this helped make Australia a business-friendly country. So hence, they withdrew all the paper-based note and replaced them with long-lasting polymer-based notes of the same amount. Okay, so वो उन्होंने substance, वो material change किया था. European Union in 2002, the introduction of euro as a unified currency in 2002 necessitated the demonetization of the current existing European Union's, the 12 founding members' key currency. But as of now, we do understand that there are a lot of countries in the European Union jinki principal currency euro nahi hai. And apart from that, a lot of countries which are not a part of the European Union, unki principal currency euro hai. But at that time, the citizens were well informed, and it was quite a successful currency switch. North Korea में 2010 में ये हुआ था, again to stop black market and to strengthen the economy. But following this, the finance minister was assassinated. तो वो देख लेना finance minister का नाम क्या है. अभी ये होमवर्क इसलिए दे रही हूँ ताकि एक बार जाके तुम पढ़ो इस चीज को दोबारा से और लर्न करो, ठीक है? And नहीं आता है तो I am going to come again. So you're going to ask me, I'm going to give you that answer. But at least थोड़ा बहुत हम लोग खुद भी करें. फिर आ गया जिम्बाब्वे का डिमोनेटाइजेशन ऑफ 2015. इनका हाइपर इन्फ्लेशन चल रहा था ना. हाइपर इन्फ्लेशन लाइक दैट लेवल ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन, उसके बाद मतलब इट टेक्स अ वेरी लॉन्ग टाइम फॉर द कंट्री टू गेट बैक टू नॉर्मल. there are many economists that categorize inflation in many different ways: creeping inflation, crawling inflation, galloping inflation, hyperinflation. बट हर एक कंट्री के लिए वो कौन सा वाला ऑप्टिमल इन्फ्लेशन है और कब वो हाइपर इन्फ्लेशन बनता है, दैट डिपेंड्स फ्रॉम कंट्री टू कंट्री. अपनी कंट्री में 4% प्लस माइनस 2% इज द ऑप्टिमल इन्फ्लेशन. There they recorded like a high of this much percentage of hyperinflation, imagine, right? And they had basically done this so as to stabilize their economy. Now that is that about demonetization. So हमें पता चल गया demonetization होता क्या है, करेंसी का हमने हिस्ट्री पढ़ ली. नेक्स्ट क्लास में हम ई रुपी की बात करेंगे, उसका आप पहले से पढ़ के आएंगे ताकि इट शुड बी लाइक अ डायलॉग इंस्टेड ऑफ लाइक अ मोनोलॉग. एंड आई डू अंडरस्टैंड यू कैन नॉट रियली अनम्यूट योरसेल्फ एंड टॉक, बट यू डू हैव द चैट बॉक्स एंड यू कैन यूटिलाइज दैट. And we'll have a discussion about the e-rupee. Is that okay, everyone who's online? Now, the next thing that we are going to talk about is the narco test. सबने पढ़ा है इसके बारे में, आफ्ताब पूना वाला. मुझे नहीं लगता कि इतना ज्यादा जो हर एक बच्चे को पता है जिसके बारे में वो क्लैट में आ जाएगा. But there was one thing which was very, very interesting, which is with respect to the narco test. So we can talk about that, right? Now, narco test होता क्या है और किसको दिया जाता है, and whether this is considered to be right or wrong or whatever. At the very onset, let's remember that fundamental right that says no one can be compelled to be a witness against himself. This is my fundamental right. This is a fundamental right of an accused in our country. And we do understand that with respect to evidence, we already have the Indian Evidence Act of 1872, जो कि बताता है कि कौन सा evidence admissible है, कौन सा evidence non-admissible है. Circumstantial evidence को हम लोग बिल्कुल last resort में लेते हैं. अब दो टाइप की चीजें होगी, एक हो गया लाई डिटेक्टर टेस्ट, एक हो गया नार्को एनालिसिस टेस्ट. लाई डिटेक्टर टेस्ट या पॉलीमर टेस्ट, ये थोड़ी देर में हम देखेंगे. इट बेसिकली सीज, इट चेक्स योर हार्ट बीट एंड योर ब्लड प्रेशर and it says whether a person is lying or a person is not lying. Now, जितने भी ऑनलाइन हैं, झूठ तो बोला है लाइफ में, हमें है ना, बोला है, हमेशा नहीं बोला है, लेकिन कभी कभार तो झूठ बोला है. पहली बार या इनिशियली जब हम लोगों ने झूठ बोला होगा अपनी जिंदगी में, मम्मी पापा को ही बोला होगा, टीचर को बोला होगा. You see, what used to happen was our heart used to start racing. We used to not be able to look at the person, in their eye, and फटाफट से बोल के निकल जाते थे कि कोई पकड़ ना ले. अब जो है हम छटे हुए खिलाड़ी हो चुके हैं. अब हम आंखों में आंखें डाल के झूठ बोलते हैं कि नहीं बोलते हैं. अब जब ये बोलते हैं तो हमारे ऊपर ये लाई डिटेक्टर टेस्ट तो फेल हो जाएगा. तो वो हो गया आपका लाई डिटेक्टर टेस्ट, जो आपके फिजियोलॉजिकल चेंजेस को देख के it says whether a person is lying or the person is telling the truth. The second thing is your narco analysis test. Now, in this particular thing, a certain substance is put inside your system and you go into a subconscious state of mind wherein it's not possible for you to lie. Simple as that. पर ये वाला सब्सटेंस डालने से पहले भी परमिशन चाहिए होती है कोर्ट की और उस इंसान की जिसके अंदर वो सब्सटेंस डाला जा रहा है. And you see, there are a lot of contentious issues with respect to the narco analysis test. Now we can go the truth serum, right? So we can go step by step over here. अब इस बंदे के बारे में पता ही है, आफ्ताब पूना वाला, and how he's killed his live-in partner Shraddha Walker, and he chopped her into a lot of pieces and spread them all over South Delhi over several weeks. And so as of now, this narco analysis test will be done on him. So a drug called sodium pentothal is injected into the body of the accused, which transport them into a hypnotic state or a sedated state, right? And you're incapable of lying at this stage. जो नींद में बोलते हैं, मैं नहीं कह रही उनके साथ नार्को एनालिसिस टेस्ट हो रहा है, लेकिन वो सबकॉन्शियस स्टेट ऑफ माइंड में जब हम चले जाते हैं, it's quite tricky because we end up saying everything which is the truth. Okay, so something like that, but this is induced. It is a fast acting, short duration anesthetic, right? Yeah, correct. As per in the forest of Mehrauli, as per media reports, correct. So which is used in larger doses to sedate the patient during surgery. And yeah, truth serum भी इसको बोलते हैं. सुप्रिया ने जैसे बोला अभी, सुप्रिया ने ही बोला ना, हाँ. So correct, 35 pieces, correct. So this was used by the intelligence operators during the World War II. अब पॉलीग्राफ टेस्ट, पॉलीमर बोल दिया था, पॉलीग्राफ टेस्ट ऑन द अदर हैंड इज योर लाई डिटेक्टर टेस्ट. वही चीज, आपका स्वेट ग्लैंड की एक्टिविटी, ब्लड फ्लो, ब्लड प्रेशर, पल्स रेट, ये सब चेक किया जाता है. अब a test such as this is said to have, we are talking about the lie detector test, is said to have been done for the very first time in the 19th century by Italian criminologist Cesare Lombroso, right? And similar devices have been made by American psychologist William Mastron and 1914 mein, and California police officer John Larson in 1921. Fine. Now, is this even allowed? Is there a Supreme Court judgment that talks about किसके ऊपर narco analysis हो सकता है, किसके ऊपर नहीं हो सकता है? So the case is Selvi versus State of Andhra Pradesh and others in 2010. Justice K.G. Balakrishnan, R.V. Ravindran, and Justice J.M. Panchal, they ruled that no lie detector test should be administered except on the basis of the consent of the accused. And similarly, with respect to even the narco analysis test, this particular thing is happening after asking Aftab Poonawala, like after telling him what will be the repercussion of this particular action, and he seems to have consented to the fact. Abhi aur kya karega? Abhi to pata chal gaya sabko usne kya kiya hai, right? So it was published. Okay, so those who volunteer must have access to a lawyer. Physical, emotional, and legal implication of the test should be explained to the accused by the police and then by the lawyer, right? And then that's how you're going to do it. Otherwise, you can't possibly do it. And NHRC ने भी 2000 में बोला कि strictly ये सारे के सारे rules and regulations को follow करना चाहिए. Are these evidences admissible? As per the Indian Evidence Act of 1872, last resort, like नहीं करना चाहिए ये चीज, नहीं लिखी है ये, और अगर करना भी है तो कोर्ट की परमिशन से करना होता है, और कौन सी चीज को एडमिसिबल करना है, नहीं करना है, दैट डिपेंड्स अपॉन द कोर्ट. Now, how will it be admissible is what we are going to deal with. What will Aftab Poonawala do, and how can it be termed as confession? That is the next thing that we are talking about. It cannot be termed as a confession because he's in a drug state of mind. However, कुछ भी अगर उसने बोल दिया और अगर जाके वहां पे वो चीज मिल गई, तो फिर उसको हम लोग एज एविडेंस रख लेंगे. सो फॉर एग्जाम्पल, नार्को एनालिसिस टेस्ट के बाद वो बोल देता है कि मर्डर वेपन यहाँ पे है, और फिर पुलिस जाके वो वहां पे इन्वेस्टिगेट करके उसको दिखता है कि हाँ, मर्डर वेपन वाकई में यहाँ पे है, उस चीज को फिर एविडेंस के तौर पे हम लोग रखेंगे. इज दैट ओके? करेक्ट. सो you're absolutely right, है ना? Any self-incrimination that I do voluntarily in front of a magistrate is the only thing that will be admissible. ये वाली चीज समझ में आई दोनों को? ठीक है. Any information on material subsequently discovered with the help of such a voluntarily taken test, voluntarily is the operative word over here, can be admitted as evidence, the Supreme Court said. ठीक है. सो पूनावाला ने कुछ ऐसे मर्डर वेपन वाली बात बोल दी, तो उसके बाद अगर मिल गया तो हम उसको रख सकते हैं. बाकी everything has to be taken into consideration कि we are not forcing you to say whatever you're saying, we are not even forcing you to do this test, you have consented to it. दूसरा, right to fair trial आपको मिलेगा, right? You will be given a chance of being heard, you will be given an advocate. वही वाली चीज, right to be produced before the nearest magistrate within 24 hours of getting arrested, all of that is being done. हमने process बिल्कुल बढ़िया तरीके से किया है, ठीक है. एंड इंटरनेशनल नॉर्म्स ऑन ह्यूमन राइट्स भी हम फॉलो कर रहे हैं. In India, narco analysis was first used in 2002 in the Godhra Carnage case. गोधरा राइट्स वगैरह के बारे में शायद आपने सुना होगा, राइट? फिर अरुण भट्ट किडनैपिंग केस इन गुजरात, यहाँ पे भी यूज हुआ था. Telgi stamp paper scam, where Abdul Karim Telgi was taken, the test was done on him. This was also there. ठीक है. पर यही वाली चीज है कि कौन सा वाला एविडेंस हम मान सकते हैं, कौन सा नहीं मान सकते हैं, दैट डिपेंड्स अपॉन उसने क्या बोला वो सबकॉन्शियस स्टेट ऑफ माइंड में, और वाकई में वो वाली चीज वहां पे मिली है कि नहीं मिली है. क्योंकि सब्सटैंशियली इफ इट इज अ टैंजिबल ऑब्जेक्ट, of course I can go and produce it before the court of law. But if there is nothing tangible, then it becomes very difficult to prove it in the court of law. Now, so that is that about your narco analysis test. Then the next one is your world's population touches 8 billion. Okay, how is India placed? तो पहली बात तो world population prospect report 2022 is the 27th edition, this is important, of the UN population estimates. It has been publishing this since 1950 and estimates hai 1950 se leke present day tak 237 countries or areas ke liye. Jo latest assessment hai, this is after considering the results of 1,758 national population censuses conducted between 1950 to 2022 and also from 2890 nationally representative sample surveys. So जो भी सरकार ने अपना census किया हो, कोई survey किया हो 1950 से लेके 2022 तक, all of them will submit it and then thereafter we will come up with this edition. This is the 27th edition that we are talking about. ये अभी नहीं हुआ है, ये पहले क्या हुआ है, पर 8 बिलियन वर्ल्ड की पॉपुलेशन अभी जाके हुई है. So World Population Day is 11 July. Theme is a world of 8 billion towards a resilient future for all, harnessing opportunities and ensuring rights and choices for all. Now, this is something that you can keep in mind कि world की population 1 billion कब हुई? 1804 में, 2 billion 1927 में, 3 billion 1959 में, 4 billion 1974, 5 billion 1987, 6 billion 1998, 2011 is 7 billion, 8 billion is 2022. India is going to become the world's most populous country in 2023. Exactly. So the latest projections by the UN report, it basically says that the global population will be going up till 8.5 billion in 2030, 9.7 billion in 2050, 10.4 billion in 2100. बीच में पैंडेमिक आ गया तो उसमें पहले ही हो जाएगा, राइट? भगवान करे ना ही आए. फिर अगर हम लोग बात करें कि ये पॉपुलेशन ग्रोथ किस वजह से होती है, एक तो डिक्लाइनिंग लेवल ऑफ मॉर्टैलिटी है ना, कितनी देर में, डू वी हैव टू लर्न ऑल ऑफ दिस? आई वाज वेटिंग फॉर दिस क्वेश्चन. यस, यू शुड ना. 8 बिलियन का अगर हुआ है तो ये आपको पता होना चाहिए. ये वाली रिपोर्ट अभी की है तो आपको बेसिक आइडिया होना चाहिए कि 10 बिलियन कब हो रहा है, 9 बिलियन कब हो रहा है, 8.5 बिलियन कब हो रहा है. इज दैट ओके? नाउ सो डिक्लाइनिंग लेवल ऑफ मॉर्टैलिटी के मतलब लोग मर नहीं रहे हैं तो ऑब्वियसली काफी देर तक जीवित रहेंगे, ठीक है. लाइफ एक्सपेक्टेंसी भी बढ़ रही है. अभी आप देखो कि ब्रिटिश के टाइम पे तो हम अकॉर्डिंग टू योर एनसीईआरटी 32 इयर्स की लाइफ एक्सपेक्टेंसी होती थी, राइट? अब जाके 2019 में 72.8 हो गया, which is an increase of almost 9 years since 1990. And by 2050 they say 77.2 years globally हो जाएगा. Average के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं. In 2020, the global growth rate fell under 1% per year for the first time since 1950. India is going to overtake China as the world's most populous country in 2023. अभी बच्चे ने बता दिया है ना. मीडियन एज, एवरेज एज की बात कर रहे हैं कि एवरेज मतलब क्या हमारा डेमोग्राफिक डिविडेंड होगा. तो हमारे पास है यंगस्टर्स, थोड़े से बुढ़े हो जाते हैं चाइना में और काफी बुढ़े हो जाते हैं जापान में, against a global value of 30.3. So if youngsters are there in India, it is a very good thing for India right now. लेकिन हमारी फर्टिलिटी रेट अगर डिक्रीज हो रही है तो आगे जाके बच्चे और अगर पैदा नहीं होने वाले तो we will have a country, not right now, eventually a country of old people. So you see, fertility rate decreasing for a short duration is a good thing, for a long duration isn't good, right? Because replacement rate वाली बात भी आ जाती है. We'll just talk about that. So population prospect says that India's population stands at 1.412 billion in 2022. ठीक है, एंड चाइना को ओवरटेक कर देंगे तो वो वाली चीज हमें पता चल गई. Now United Nations Population Fund says India has the largest amount of adolescent and youth population. ठीक है, which is a very good thing for us because यही demographic dividend है और यही काम वगैरह करेंगे. और यंगस्टर्स जहां पे ज्यादा होते हैं डेमोग्राफिक डिविडेंड के अंदर, वर्किंग एज पॉपुलेशन के अंदर, दैट इज गुड फॉर अ कंट्री, right? And UNFPA has also estimated 68% of the people are between 15 to 64 years of age. Now, why do we talk about 15 years? Because you see under Article 24 of the Constitution, it says 14 साल से छोटे बच्चे को हमने hazardous occupation में काम नहीं कराना. और जो आपका चाइल्ड लेबर प्रोहिबिशन रेगुलेशन एक्ट ऑफ 1986 है, वो कहते हैं 14 साल से छोटे बच्चे को कहीं पे भी काम नहीं कराना, नॉट जस्ट हजार्डस, इवन अदर प्लेसेस। हाँ, 15 साल से 18 साल तक के बच्चे को हजार्डस एरियाज में हमने काम नहीं कराना, लेकिन डेंजरस चीजों में तो काम करा ही सकते हैं, इसका मतलब। और जो नॉन हजार्डस, नॉन डेंजरस है, वहां पे भी कर सकते हैं, इसीलिए 15 हैज बीन रिटन ओवर हियर, राइट? Now, as per UN estimates, over 27% of the country's population is between 15 to 29. ये UNFPA है और ये सिर्फ और सिर्फ यूनाइटेड नेशंस ने बोला है। Now, the share of, ये इतना ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, just keep it in mind कि more than 50% बोला है UNFPA ने। The share of global population aged above 65 and above has risen from 10% in 2022, will rise from 10% in 2022 to 16%. मतलब बुढ़े वर्ल्ड ओवर ज्यादा हो रहे हैं, हमारे पास जवान है, सारे काम यहीं पे होंगे, पैसा हम कमाएंगे, बढ़िया बात है, ठीक है। And in this period, the number of children each woman has during her lifetime has come down from 5.4 to 2.1 now. You see it in your own house. Grandparents ने पूरी क्रिकेट टीम खड़ी की हुई है, फिर मॉम डैड का अगर टाइम आता है तो दो दो बच्चे, अभी आज की डेट पे तो एक दो की ही हम बात कर रहे हैं। Will surpass 200 in 2023 में चाइना को, हाँ, less dependent population, correct, ठीक है। सो रिप्लेसमेंट लेवल फर्टिलिटी, वेरी राइटली सेड बाय ऑल ऑफ यू, है ना? तो हमने बोला है रिप्लेसमेंट लेवल फर्टिलिटी क्या होती है? लेवल ऑफ फर्टिलिटी जहां पे जितने मरेंगे उतने और जिएंगे, मतलब पैदा हो जाएंगे, राइट? सो 2.1 चिल्ड्रन पर वुमन, दिस इज व्हाट इज द रिप्लेसमेंट लेवल fertility, and India has got this 2.1 children per woman वाला, and very rightly said, ये नेशनल फैमिली हेल्थ सर्वे 5 जो है उसने बोला है 2.0। सिक्किम हैज द लोएस्ट फर्टिलिटी रेट ऑफ 1.1, इट इज बिलो द रिप्लेसमेंट लेवल फर्टिलिटी। अगर हम फैमिली प्लानिंग के बारे में बात करें तो सबसे पहला प्रोग्राम 1952 में था, राइट? एंड अब जाके हम फैमिली प्लानिंग 2030 के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, वेयर वी आर फोकसिंग ऑन कोलैबोरेशन, कन्वर्जेंस एंड इंक्लूसिवनेस, राइट? Now, Dr. Bharti Praveen Pawar, she is the Union Minister of State for Health and Family Welfare. And so you guys keep asking, ये Minister of State learn करना है, नहीं करना है? जितेंद्र सिंह तो लर्न कर लिया, राव इंद्रजीत सिंह भी लर्न कर लिया, ठीक है। एक इसका नाम भी लर्न कर लेना, क्योंकि इसने एड्रेस किया था नेशनल फैमिली प्लानिंग समिट ऑफ 2022 को, ठीक है, न्यू दिल्ली में। और इसका थीम क्या था समिट का? सस्टेनिंग एफर्ट्स, स्टीयरिंग पार्टनरशिप, शेपिंग विजन इन फैमिली प्लानिंग, सबका साथ, सबका विश्वास, सबका प्रयास, सबका विकास, ठीक है। ये तो प्रधानमंत्री जी का मोटो है, right? So she says that as many as 31 states and UTs have achieved a total fertility rate of 2.1 or less, and we are using modern contraceptive usage, which has substantially increased to 56.5% as per the National Family Health Survey, ठीक है। और हमने इन्फेंट मोर्टेलिटी, मतलब वो बच्चा जो पैदा होते सार 1 साल के अंदर अंदर जिसकी मृत्यु हो जाती है, एंड मॉर्बिडिटी मतलब डिजीज, आई एम टॉकिंग सम शिट टुडे, नो, आई हैव बीन टॉकिंग सिंस मॉर्निंग, पार्डन मी। सो डिक्रीज नहीं, डिजीज। सो मॉर्बिडिटी में इफ यू नो, इफ दैट चाइल्ड इज बिन, उसको कोई डिजीज हो जाता है, लाइफ थ्रेटनिंग और व्हाटएवर, और अदरवाइज ऑल्सो, इन दोनों चीजों को हमने कम किया है। मटर्नल मोर्टेलिटी रेट को भी हमने कम किया है, फर्दर और कम करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, राइट? सो इसमें मिशन परिवार विकास 2016 विल गिव फर्दर इम्पेटस टू द नेशनल फैमिली प्लानिंग प्रोग्राम, जहां पे हम नई पहल, किट्स देंगे, कॉन्ट्रासेप्टिव्स वगैरह देंगे, सास बहू सम्मेलन रखेंगे जहां पे लेडीज को बताएंगे कि यू नो फैमिली प्लानिंग किस तरीके से करनी चाहिए, साथ ही वैन्स यूज करेंगे ताकि हम लोग एक्सेसिबिलिटी इंक्रीज कर पाए टुवर्ड्स इवन दोज पीपल जहां पे डिजिटल डिवाइड है, जहां पे लोग नहीं जा सकते नॉर्मली, राइट? And so during this event, the minister also unveiled the Family Planning 2030 and launched the Medical Eligibility Criteria Wheel application, e-module of the Family Planning Logistics Management System, and digital archive on family planning under the category of digital intervention. तो यहाँ पे मतलब क्या एलिजिबिलिटी क्राइटेरियन होना चाहिए टू हैव अ चाइल्ड, व्हाट शुड बी दैट एज, फैमिली प्लानिंग कैसे करनी चाहिए, उसके क्या लॉजिस्टिक्स हैं, हु आर गोइंग टू कम एंड हेल्प यू, आशावादी आंगनवाड़ी वर्कर्स को भी हम लोग यहाँ पे रखेंगे, एक डिजिटल आर्काइव रखेंगे कि मतलब क्या क्या हमने किया है फैमिली प्लानिंग के लिए एज द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया. सो ऑल ऑफ दैट विल बी केप्ट इनटू कंसिडरेशन. The last one for the day, everybody must have read about this. पढ़ा है कि नहीं पढ़ा है? तो ये हमारा प्राइवेट रॉकेट के बारे में हम बात कर रहे हैं. बहुत बढ़िया चीज है हमने जो अभी की है. ये यहाँ पे आप देख रहे हैं, काफी फेडेड फोटोग्राफ है, इंडियन एक्सप्रेस से ही ली है, right? And Skyroot Aerospace is the one that has been able to do this, right? So India का पहला private rocket, it was launched on Friday. It crossed the edge of space and splashed back into Bay of Bengal. It was a pilot run and it was a successful pilot run. Fine. 6 meter tall विक्रम साराभाई के नाम पे ये चीज हमने रखी है, ये रॉकेट. Suborbital vehicle developed by a 4-year-old startup called Skyroot Aerospace. It reached an altitude of 89.5 kilometers around 2.5 minutes after the launch from Sriharikota. Launch facility वही है Sriharikota. Now, target was to reach the space, which begins at an altitude of 80 kilometers or 89.5 kilometers तक क्या, तो mighty successful, right? And we wanted to attempt to touch the Karman line. Please keep this in mind, अगर नहीं आता तो. Karman line is located at an altitude of 100 kilometer altitude mark. ये वो point है जहाँ पे Earth's atmosphere ends. But satellites cannot be stably put into orbit. वो थोड़ा और जाके low Earth orbit पे जाके फिर हम लोग जैसे इंटरनेशनल स्पेस स्टेशन वगैरह हमने रखा है तो elliptical orbit शुरू हो जाता है. ठीक है. सो कार्बन लाइन इज समथिंग दैट वी कैन कीप इन माइंड. बाकी तो हमने पढ़ा ही होगा, शायद ये भी पढ़ा होगा. द नेम ऑफ द मिशन वाज प्रारंभ. ठीक है. इट वाज कंसिडर्ड टू बी अ सक्सेस. It would have been considered to be a success had it gone up till 50 kilometers also. And that was the main goal. That was just to check कि भाई जो हमने बनाया है वो हो भी रहा है, जा भी रहा है, नहीं जा रहा है. पर उससे भी आगे बढ़ा तो that is a very good thing for us. In fact, 3 customer payloads were on board, including the Space Kids India's FunSat. है ना, Azad Sat आपने already पढ़ रखा है. ठीक है. So it is a small step, but it is a giant leap for Indian space industry. It is a prarambh of a great future. So Skyroot Aerospace का co-founder कौन है? पवन चंदना. So ये आपने नाम लर्न करना है. बाकी विक्रम साराभाई आपको पता ही है. डायमीटर भी लर्न कर लो. ठीक है. हाइट 6 meters है ये विक्रम एस की, and 380 mm is the diameter. It is a very, very tiny rocket as compared to the ISRO rockets, but nonetheless a successful one. The liftoff was swift and the rocket spending under a second, 0.73 second on the rails, and then reached a speed of Mach 5, which is 5 times the speed of sound in about 20 seconds. So that is a good thing. बाकी जो एक और चीज हमने रखनी है दिमाग में, डायरेक्टर जनरल है इंडियन स्पेस एसोसिएशन के, उनका नाम है लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल A.K. Bhatt. Also says that Indian space economy is going to do rather well. We are going to grow up till $13 billion US, and we are going to grow up till that end, matlab by 2025 at a compounded annual growth of 13%. So Lieutenant General A.K. Bhatt का नाम भी important हो गया. Correct. Sriharikota Port. ठीक है. So that is that from my side. अब आगे questions. और आज मैंने A वाली चीज नहीं रखी है. 3 ही questions है, फटाफट से आंसर लिखो और फिर मिलो मुझे 15 मिनट के बाद क्विज में. फटाफट. Come on. So when did demonetization happen for the first time in India? S. Somnath is the dash chief of ISRO. मुझे पता है S. Somnath तुम्हें आता है. अभी कौन से एडिशन वाली की चीज है तो वो मैं पूछ रही हूँ. फटाफट से आंसर लिखना शुरू कर दो. International Nurses Day is celebrated on. Good. So this is 1946. It is A. S. Somnath is the 10th chief, and International Nurses Day is also A option. ठीक है. 12th May. Done, everyone. That is all from my side. Learn all of this. And in the next session, we will do the COP27 and everything related to environment and every protocol and any other jargon that we need to know. Is that okay, everybody? Great. Chalo. Then see you in some time. Take like a 15-minute break. Give your quiz quickly as to